Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor being part of the Fulfilment Summit. Before I start, I just quickly want to share my screen with you guys. Just give me a second. Okay, great. So, my topic for today is the critical importance of logistics when your only human-to-human interaction is upon delivery. How to ensure a great and complete customer experience with limited interaction with your customer. So yes, that is quite a mouthful. So when I started preparing for this topic, and it's a topic I've done quite a few times before, I realized that my perception about it has completely changed over the past year after or within the COVID pandemic. Human-to-human interaction, as you can kind of gauge from the topic, has always been seen as a disadvantage for the e-commerce industry. However, if we look at the past year, it's actually that specific characteristic of e-commerce that has allowed for massive growth in the e-commerce industry. The fact that people can buy products with limited human interaction was one of the main reasons why e-commerce has grown so much over the past year. So it's really interesting to kind of see that difference in mindset when one thinks about this topic. Especially e-commerce within South Africa has always been in the shadow of traditional retail. The total online spend is about 2% of total retail transactions, where the world average is around 60%. So it's quite clear that South Africa still has a very long way to go. However, it's estimated that by the end of 2020, that number would have increased to 4%. So, and I really believe that one of the main reasons that number has increased in 2020 was because of the fact that e-commerce allow for retail with limited human interaction. So you might ask me then, okay, why is it worthwhile to talk about this topic? And also, who are you, Anita? What gives you the right to make these comments? So I thought rather than going with some general stats, just to provide you with some Africa related statistics, just to give you guys all a background. Africa, we're a company that mostly operates within South Africa, and our main aim is to assist e-commerce merchants with the fulfillment and the shipping of their parcels. So we've got about 2,000 SMEs, mostly e-commerce, using us, and we're shipping about 150 parcels across South Africa per month. So we really are positioned in a very good place to be able to comment in terms of from the courier perspective as well as from the e-commerce perspective. So if we look at our statistics for 2020, my comment is basically based on me working within the industry. So if you look at from a Africa perspective, you'll see the first graph on the slide here is Africa shipments per day. And then you'll see in the month, this was for 2020. So you'll see in the month of April, there was obviously a massive dip. And that's when South Africa had the lockdown and e-commerce wasn't also allowed to trade. They were actually allowed to trade, but they weren't allowed to deliver. And then you will see in the month of May when e-commerce opened, the massive increase in the amount of shipments per day. And you will see that growth was sustained throughout the year of 2020. And we also see that within, we still see that within the year of 2021. As well as your Africa accounts registered. So that also will give you a bit of an idea of the accounts that was registered. And you'll also see the massive growth from April to May last year. And then it did dip a little bit, but it also kind of, the growth was sustained throughout the year of 2020. So this just really shows you what a massive effect COVID has had on the e-commerce industry in South Africa. And one of the main reasons for this, I believe, is the type of retail that e-commerce allows. And people see it as not only convenient, but they also see it as being safe. So bringing me back to the topic, I do think it's just really important to confirm that even though there's limited human-to-human interaction, it's still extremely important that you get the delivery side, the logistics side of the e-commerce journey, that you can get that right as an e-commerce merchant. A lot of people believe that the shipping and delivery side, or the logistics side, actually only starts with shipping and delivery. However, I strongly believe that logistics, in order to do it right, you need to start focusing on logistics from the first point that your customer has contact with your website. So if you look at the order fulfillment process, and I've got a little graph here as well on the screen. So from the point shopping, so from the point your customer actually lands onto your website, you need to already start thinking about logistics and follow that through the whole order fulfillment process. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to look at the order fulfillment process, and I then mention a few important aspects in regards to logistics that you need to focus on and you need to make sure you get right in order to create this great and cohesive customer experience for your customers. Okay, so as I've mentioned, it starts at the beginning. So as soon as your customer lands on your website, you need to make sure that you've got shipping terms and conditions on there. So it might sound very obvious, but I can promise you we work with a lot of customers that completely forget that they actually need to add that on. Make sure that you have detail on the process. State if there is returns or not. Make sure that you confirm, if you can, which couriers you will be using. All of that is part of forming the customer expectation, that they can, if they know what's going to happen and they can pre-plan that, then they feel more comfortable at the point where it is happening. So it's really important to look at your shipping terms and conditions. Also important there is that if you do have returns, as I've mentioned, that you make sure you specify the process and the detail in there, because that's also where we see a lot of customer complaints from an e-commerce side, is the whole return process. So once your customer is confident, they feel that they understand your shipping terms and conditions, and they like your products, they go onto your orders page, they order something, and then they will basically come to the point at checkout. So checkout is also, I think a lot of people forget that when it comes to logistics, that's also really where it starts, because at checkout is where you as the online merchant ask your customer for their address. And address is the main information that you will use and the courier company will use in order to deliver the parcel to the customer. So make sure, especially that it is, I would say, obviously we've got international people with today's event as well, but make sure that it is country specific, your fields that you request your customers to fill in when it comes to the address field. So what I say with that is, for example, in South Africa, a lot of the couriers work on suburb and postal code. So make sure that you require your customer to add in the suburb. Have a field that states suburb. If you can, make the postal code a required field, because the couriers need this information in order for their system to deliver your parcel. And without it, you will have to have manual intervention. So I think that is really important. And it's these small things that can make a massive difference on ensuring that your customer, that your parcel gets delivered the first time to your customer. Then still at checkout. So another thing that's important when it comes to checkout is not just the address that you require from your customer, but also what you charge your customer at checkout. So this is a massive, or a very, not a massive topic, but it's one that gets, I think, there's a lot of different opinions about it. I can say it like that. And it's probably a topic that you can talk to about on its own with a time limit of 20 minutes that we've got today. But I'm going to try and touch on it quickly. So when it comes to asking your customer or what your customer needs to pay at checkout, there's obviously various options. So free shipping is one of the options. And I think it's a very, attractive options for a lot of e-commerce merchants. But the question that we get a lot is, can I offer free shipping? How do I know if I can offer free shipping to my customers? And I would say it's extremely important that you go and make these calculations based on your specific store, because everybody's got a unique product with unique product margins. So to start off with, what one needs to do is you kind of need to determine what is your average delivery cost per order. Once you've got that information, now, for example, as we've got here on the screen, let's say your average delivery cost per order is 80 Rand. And you decide you want to give free shipping up to the value of 700 Rand and above. So what will then happen is that means, in a sense, that 11.5% of that order of the value of 700 Rand is margin that you're giving away for shipping. So you're not charging your customer for it. It should be included in your markup of the 700 Rand. So if your margins for your products is in total 18%, that means after considering the 11.5%, you're only making a 6.5% GP or margin on your products. And let's be honest, that is not a lot. I think by the time you've added all the other costs, you most likely will be working very hard for no money or a very small amount of money. So that is really important that you go and make these calculations. And as I've mentioned, it's very product specific. So it depends a lot on the type of product and your type of product, your margins, as well as the competitors. What are your competitors asking for your products? So that's something that's extremely important to consider. There's the other option, of course, of charging your customers for shipping. It's very important to make sure that you know how the courier companies charge you in order to charge your customer. And that is a lot easier said than done. We've seen in South Africa that the courier companies tend to have extremely complex rate structures, and they make it very difficult for the customer to really understand what they're paying for. We have seen courier companies moving more towards easier pricing structures, but there's still a lot of, I would say, history in terms of how they charge. So that's really important to consider. Couriers charge in South Africa mostly based on local, main sector, and regional. So you obviously have the option to ask your customer based on that, on their delivery address. So for local, you can ask less. With regional customers, you can ask more. And then there's also the option of fixed fee, where you can say, I'm charging, let's say, a fixed 100 Rand per shipment. Keeping in mind with that model, sometimes you'll lose some and sometimes you will win some. So yeah, that is kind of the options when it comes to charge shipping. Really important to consider also when you charge your customer at checkout is returns. So returns is also more prominent in certain industries or certain products. For example, clothing, they've got the type of product just allows for a lot more returns, where, for example, beauty products or beauty products, you won't have that high percentage of returns. So it's important, if you do not charge for returns, that you make sure you need to kind of accommodate for that when you charge the customer for shipping initially. So it's just important to consider that as a cost. We do see a lot of people that forget about the fact that they need to accommodate for returns, and then the shipping cost is a lot higher than what they expected. Another point on here is just monitoring. So a lot of what I've stated now comes back to that you need data, you need stats, you need numbers to be able to monitor this information and make decisions based on it. So it's really important that you actually do that on a monthly basis. The nice thing about e-commerce is it does allow you to make changes quickly and easily on your checkout, but you need to monitor your cost of shipping, what you're charging your customers, etc., on a monthly basis, and then make changes accordingly to make sure that at the end of the day, you don't want to make money from shipping, but you also don't want to lose money because of shipping. Then my last point at checkout is, I know it's important to give options. There's a lot of stats to show that when customers got various options, there's a less likely chance of them to, less likely chance of them not to buy. But it is important to keep it clean. Make it easy for the customer to select the option. Make it easy for them to know what they are selecting. And if you can, give them extra information, for example, when is the latest estimate delivery time? So that is really important aspects to consider as part of your logistics strategy, that you need to already communicate these things to your customers at checkout as much as possible. Okay, bringing me to my another point is packaging. So packaging is also one of those very boring topics, probably when it comes to e-commerce, but it is extremely important. So why do I say that? Packaging is not just about the look and the feel of the product and the brand experience, but it's also about keeping your product safe. And a lot of people, I think, forget that when it comes to packaging. My personal opinion, but I might be a bit biased because I work within the logistics industry, is that point one, the packaging is there to make your product safe. It is there to make sure that was between the airport, the 14 trucks, the 20 drivers that it gets handed over to, that your product will get safely to your customer. So I would say point one, make sure that the packaging that you are using will ensure that your product gets safely to your customer. Then secondly, worry about the insides. So why I'm saying that, it is important to still make sure that your customer has got a good brand experience. So even though there's bubble wrap on the outside and it's in a courier sleeve, you can still give a very nice brand interaction when they, let's say, open up the final product with a little a letter or just some nice packaging within the inside of the product. So just because the packaging might not look as nice on the outside, there's still the possibility of making it nice from the inside. And I think that also speaks to the human to human interaction, because not necessarily human to human, I would say maybe say brand to human. It's your brand then speaking to your customer, and having that interaction, direct interaction with your products. Also important when it comes to packaging is cost. So why am I saying that? Shipping is or logistics is a very big cost center when it comes to e-commerce, and the packaging will also affect not just paying for the physical packaging, but a lot of the couriers charge based on the actual weight or the volumetric weight, which means if you now go and bubble wrap your parcel and it is 10 times bigger than what it usually is, great, it's going to get safely to your customer. However, you're most likely going to be charged, more than 10 times from a shipping perspective. So it is really important to find that balance, and make sure that you don't end up being charged too much. So it's quite clear, I would say, that packaging is not as easy like just going to buy a box, put your product in it and ship your product. You must really do some good research about it. And remember, all of this starts with what is your product. So that's why it's difficult to give specific examples. It's very different for clothing than it is for ceramics or for glassware. So it's really important. It's very, I would say, merchant specific. Another point that's important to discuss when it comes to logistics is to keep it automated. So we work with a lot of e-commerce merchants, from smaller to bigger guys, and we have seen some merchants where they kind of believe that once they've handed over to the parcel to the courier company, now it's the courier's company responsibility, and they're kind of tapping out from the customer experience. It's now kind of between the customer and the courier. And I really believe that's a completely incorrect mindset to have within e-commerce. Your customer bought the product from you. Yes, they understand it's a complex model, and that you will require a third party to kind of complete the service. However, I believe you can really create a good customer delivery experience if you make sure your customer still has got contact with you as the online store from which they bought the product. If there is a problem, yes, you can have your customer speak to the courier directly, but have an availability where they can give you a call on a telephone number, where there's an email they can email you on. So it's important that your customer understands that, yes, I'm making use of a third party, but you as the online merchant is still taking the responsibility, in a sense, for saying that I'm getting the parcel delivered to you. I know it's a lot easier said than done, because it is very difficult for you to rely on another company another courier company to deliver a parcel and kind of extend your own services to that. But there's a lot that you can do, I think, from a merchant side to accommodate for it. Something else to mention, and I think that's super important, is in terms of keeping it automated, is find an integration between yourself and the courier company. As I've said, it's actually basically two companies that needs to work together to offer a service to a customer. So if you've got these two systems automatically integrated, then it already makes it easier for you to offer a cohesive service to the end customer. So obviously Africa is an example of such software that allows an integration like this. There's a lot of software all across the world that offer the same services, kind of services that we do. If you are in a country that doesn't offer a service like this, it might be a good idea, or a good idea for you to maybe look and do some research to see maybe you can offer something. So there's a lot of opportunity within the e-commerce space for services that allows for this kind of integration between the courier companies and online stores. Then lastly, one of, I think, the most important, I say every point is important, so at least there's not that many, but it's communication. So when it comes to the delivery process, especially the last mile, so I'm talking from you've picked and packed your product, you've printed your label, you've informed the couriers are scheduled. From that point, it's really important to also communicate to your customer. Give them a tracking reference where they can track their parcel. Inform them what courier they can expect to come and deliver the parcel, so that they know, oh, I'm looking out for, let's say, the courier guide driver or Internet Express driver. So it's really important to communicate that to the customer. If there is a delay, make sure you've got an integration that can keep them informed. If you've got a courier company that allows for SMSs, that help a lot. South Africa is still quite a big country, and they a lot of regional areas, and within regional areas it can take quite long for a parcel to be delivered. So that is why communication is super important, and as I've mentioned before, is also to allow communication between yourself and your end customer. If something goes wrong, that they at least have got somebody to talk to, and then you can work with them to resolve the issue with the courier company. So I think that is where communication is super important. There's a lot of integrations that you can also use to facilitate and improve communication, but because of the nature of e-commerce and there isn't this human-to-human interaction, I do think where you can build a lot of trust with your customer is to still allow this human-to-human interaction in the form of communication. At least if the customer would like to speak to a person about their parcel, that they can have the ability to do that. And I do think a lot of the times the e-commerce merchants forget that they can foster a lot of trust by just opening up those communication channels. So talking about communication, if any of you guys would like to get in touch with us from Africa, or would like to ask me questions, or to argue or something that I've said today, you're more than welcome to send us an email, and we can be in touch. I really want to thank everybody for making this Fulfilment Summit happen, and thank you for having Africa as part of it. I think one can never learn too much, and it's really exciting to be part of such an amazing industry within South Africa. So have a great day. Bye guys.